What happens when a child's innocence is shattered by a brutal crime? In a world where laughter and play should reign, one little girl's life was cruelly interrupted, leaving an indelible mark on her family, her community, and indeed, the nation. Meet Jessica Lunsford, a bright, spirited 9-year-old girl with dreams as vast as the sky. Known for her infectious smile, Jessica was the type of child who could light up a room, her laughter echoing like a sweet melody in the hearts of those around her. She loved to dance, to sing, and to explore the world through the innocent eyes of childhood. But on that fateful day in February 2005, her world would take a terrifying turn. On the morning of February 24th, Jessica was playing in the safety of her neighborhood in Homosassa, Florida, a place that should have felt like a sanctuary. But as the sun rose high in the sky, casting warm beams over the quiet streets, a predator lurked in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. In a heartbeat, Jessica was gone, abducted from the very home she had known and loved. What transpired next was a chilling tale of horror, one that would reveal the depths of human depravity and the fragility of trust. As law enforcement scrambled to piece together the fragments of her disappearance, questions began to swirl. Who was responsible for this heinous act? What dark motivations drove a man to snatch away the life of an innocent child? Welcome to True Crime Tales HQ. I sincerely thank you, my esteemed viewers, most especially my subscribers, for your endless support. Please don't forget to subscribe if you are yet to subscribe to this channel. As we delve deeper into the layers of this tragic story, we will uncover not only the grim details of Jessica's abduction and murder but also the lasting impact it had on her family and community. Join us as we seek to understand the events that led to this unimaginable tragedy and reflect on the lessons learned in its wake. Jessica Lunsford was not just a name in the headlines, she was a vibrant soul, a beloved daughter, a cherished friend, and a bright spark in the lives of those who knew her. Born on the 6th of April 1995, Jessica grew up in a close-knit family in Homosassa, Florida, where the sun-drenched streets and towering oak trees formed the backdrop for her childhood adventures. Her family, comprised of her father, Mark, her mother, Angela, and her younger brother, was the foundation of her world. They shared an unbreakable bond, filled with laughter, love, and the everyday joys of life. Mark often recalls how Jessica would curl up next to him on the couch, her head resting on his shoulder as they watched cartoons together. He remembers her giggles echoing through their home, a sound that brought warmth to even the coldest of days. Angela, a nurturing mother, recalls how Jessica would help her bake cookies, her small hands dusted with flour, eagerly waiting to taste the sweet treats they created. Jessica was a spirited child, full of life and curiosity. She had an infectious enthusiasm for everything she did, whether it was dancing to her favorite songs in the living room, spending afternoons drawing colorful pictures, or exploring the nearby woods, where her imagination ran wild. Friends would often gather at her house for playdates, their laughter reverberating through the air as they created unforgettable memories together. Jessica had a knack for bringing people together, a natural ability to make everyone feel included and loved. One of her fondest hobbies was dancing. With dreams of twirling on stage, she took ballet classes, her eyes sparkling with passion as she practiced her pirouettes. She loved to dress up in her beautiful tutu, spinning and leaping with grace, embodying the very essence of childhood joy. Her dance teacher often described her as a natural, a shining star who radiated joy and energy. Even at a young age, Jessica had aspirations of performing in front of an audience, her heart set on captivating others with her talent and light. But it wasn't just her talents that made her special, it was her kindness and compassion. Jessica was the type of child who would go out of her way to help others. Friends and family remember her as a little girl with a big heart, always ready to lend a hand or offer a comforting hug. One neighbor recounted a time when Jessica spotted a stray cat wandering in the street. Without hesitation, she gently coaxed the frightened animal into her arms, promising to take care of it. It was moments like these that revealed the depth of her empathy, a trait not often seen in children her age. Despite her tender age, Jessica was wise beyond her years. She had dreams of becoming a veterinarian, a desire fueled by her love for animals and her innate nurturing spirit. She often spent weekends volunteering at the local animal shelter, where she would cuddle puppies and help care for abandoned cats, her heart swelling with joy as she made a difference in their lives. Her family often remarked that Jessica had a special connection with animals, as if they could sense her warmth and kindness. Jessica's relatability stemmed from her authenticity. She was a typical 9-year-old, filled with hopes and dreams, sometimes afraid of the dark, yet bursting with a sense of wonder about the world. She loved to ride her bike around the neighborhood, her laughter trailing behind her like a melody. She would often invite her friends to join her, racing down the street, their joy weaving a tapestry of friendship and adventure. As we reflect on Jessica's life, it becomes clear that she was not just a victim, she was a vibrant, loving child with a bright future ahead of her. Her story resonates with every parent, every sibling, and every friend who has loved a child just as fiercely. The loss of her innocent laughter and dreams serves as a haunting reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of cherishing every moment. Jessica Lunsford's life was a beautiful testament to the joys of childhood. Her spirit, much like a flickering candle, illuminated the hearts of those around her, leaving a legacy that would forever be remembered. As we delve deeper into the events of her tragic abduction, we must carry her memory forward, a reminder of the innocence that was so cruelly taken from her and the love that continues to echo in the hearts of her family and friends. To grasp the depths of the tragedy that unfolded, we must confront the chilling figure of John Cooey, a man whose life was filled with violence, neglect, and darkness. Born on March 19, 1969, Cooey's journey began in a troubled household, where instability and dysfunction were the norm. His childhood was marked by emotional trauma, growing up in an environment that failed to nurture or protect him, leaving scars that would shape his future in unimaginable ways. As he transitioned into adulthood, Cooey's life was characterized not by hopes and dreams, but by a series of criminal offenses. His early years were punctuated by burglaries and petty crimes, but it was a far more sinister act that would forever alter the course of his life. In 1993, he was convicted of sexual battery against a child, a crime that should have sounded alarm bells within the justice system. Yet, the laws of the time allowed him to serve only a brief sentence, returning him to society with minimal oversight. Cooey's release from prison should have been a warning sign, a harbinger of the dangers he posed, but instead, it was a missed opportunity for intervention. He became a ghost among us, a man with a long and troubling history, living within mere yards of children, including Jessica Lunsford. As a registered sex offender, he was required to report his whereabouts, yet he slipped through the cracks of a system ill-equipped to handle individuals like him. His record was a patchwork of arrests, with each offense seemingly forgotten in the wake of his release, allowing him to blend into the community, a wolf in sheep's clothing, waiting for the right moment to strike. Psychologically, Cooey was a complex and deeply troubled individual. Experts who have studied his case often point to traits commonly found in violent offenders: a profound lack of empathy, impulsivity, and a tendency to view the world through a distorted lens. Cooey's antisocial behavior manifested in his interactions, where he exhibited a chilling detachment from the emotional lives of others. Friends and acquaintances described him as socially awkward, often avoiding eye contact and struggling to engage in normal conversations. This disconnection fueled a growing resentment toward society, a festering anger that would eventually erupt in the most horrific manner. Substance abuse played a significant role in Cooey's downward spiral. He battled addiction to alcohol and drugs, with substances acting as both a crutch and a catalyst for his violent tendencies. The drugs dulled his senses, warping his already fragile grasp on reality. Friends recounted stories of erratic behavior during these episodes, where the lines between right and wrong blurred, and impulse ruled his actions. It was during one of these dark moments that he would commit the unthinkable act against Jessica. As we examine the societal context of sex offenders in Florida during the early 2000s, we find a landscape fraught with fear and confusion. The state had been grappling with a rising tide of concern regarding child safety, particularly following several high-profile abductions and murders. Communities were on high alert, and the public demanded action. Yet, despite the clamor for justice, the systems in place were inadequate, often failing to protect the most vulnerable among us. The laws that governed sex offenders allowed for repeated offenses, with many released back into society without the necessary monitoring or support. The case of Jessica Lunsford would ultimately shine a spotlight on these systemic failures, prompting a national conversation about the need for reform. But at this moment, we must confront the reality of John Cooey, a man whose life was a series of missed opportunities for intervention, whose choices were driven by a darkness that would lead to the destruction of an innocent child. As we reflect on his background, we are left with a haunting question: how could a man with such a history be allowed to live so close to a child? The answers lie in the complexities of our justice system, a system that failed both Jessica and her family in the most tragic of ways. With this understanding, we turn our attention to the harrowing events that transpired on that fateful night, forever marking the lives of those left behind. When 9-year-old Jessica Lunsford vanished from her home on the morning of February 24, 2005, a community plunged into despair. The once peaceful streets of Homosassa, Florida, were now cloaked in fear and uncertainty. As the sun rose on that fateful day, the Lunsford family awoke to an unimaginable nightmare: their beloved daughter was missing. Immediately, law enforcement sprang into action. The Citrus County Sheriff's Office initiated a massive search operation, mobilizing deputies, search and rescue teams, and volunteers from the community. The air was thick with anxiety as officers fanned out across the neighborhood, canvassing homes and questioning residents. Helicopters soared overhead, their blades slicing through the still morning air, while K-9 units scoured the nearby woods, noses to the ground, searching for any sign of the little girl. The urgency of the situation was palpable. Jessica was not just another missing child, she was a bright light extinguished too soon, and every moment counted. As search teams combed through the area, the Lunsford family stood at the center of the storm, their hearts heavy with worry. Mark Lunsford, Jessica's father, became a voice for his daughter, pleading with the public for help. His heart-wrenching calls for information echoed through the media, resonating with parents across the nation who felt the weight of his anguish. As the days turned into weeks, the investigation intensified. Officers meticulously gathered witness statements, hoping to piece together the puzzle of Jessica's disappearance. Neighbors recalled seeing a man lurking in the vicinity, a figure who seemed out of place, a shadow that had gone unnoticed until now. Hints of a darker presence emerged, leading investigators to John Cooey, a convicted sex offender living just a stone's throw from the Lunsford home. On March 12, law enforcement tracked Cooey down in Augusta, Georgia, where he was arrested on an unrelated cannabis possession warrant. At first, he was merely a person of interest, but his proximity to the Lunsford home and his sordid past painted a chilling picture. During questioning, Cooey denied any involvement in Jessica's disappearance, claiming he had moved to Georgia for work. However, his alibi crumbled under scrutiny, and investigators were determined to dig deeper. The breakthrough came when Cooey's half-sister granted police permission to search the trailer where he had been living. What they discovered inside would send shockwaves through the investigation. In a darkened bedroom closet, investigators found a blood-stained mattress and pillows, a gruesome hint of the horrors that had transpired. Forensic analysis revealed the presence of both Cooey's and Jessica's DNA, compelling evidence that linked him directly to her abduction. However, the investigation was not without its challenges. The initial search efforts were hampered by the sheer volume of information pouring in, as tips flooded in from concerned citizens, many of whom had seen or heard something that could lead to Jessica. Sorting through this deluge proved arduous, and investigators faced mounting pressure to deliver answers to a terrified community. As law enforcement worked tirelessly, they encountered a significant hurdle when Cooey's confession was ultimately deemed inadmissible in court. This setback threatened to derail the case, but investigators remained resolute. They focused on building a solid case based on the physical evidence collected, witness statements, and Cooey's own incriminating remarks made to investigators and jail guards. The forensic evidence was irrefutable: the bloodstains, the DNA, and the chilling context of what had taken place in that trailer. Each piece of evidence served as a testament to Jessica's tragic fate and the reality of Cooey's monstrous actions. The mounting pressure on law enforcement fueled their determination, igniting a fire within them to seek justice for the little girl who could no longer speak for herself. As investigators pieced together the timeline of events, they discovered the horrifying details of Jessica's last days. Cooey had lured her into his home, where he held her captive, subjected her to unspeakable acts, and ultimately took her life. The weight of this knowledge was a heavy burden for those involved, but it also solidified their resolve. They would not rest until justice was served. Finally, on March 17, 2005, Cooey was arrested and charged with the murder of Jessica Lunsford. The news reverberated through the community, a mixture of relief and heartbreak, knowing that while justice might be on the horizon, it would never erase the pain of losing an innocent child. The investigation into Jessica's murder was not just a pursuit of a criminal, it was a quest for answers, for closure, and for a community desperate to heal. As the case moved toward trial, the legacy of Jessica Lunsford would loom large, a reminder of the fragility of childhood and the need for vigilance in protecting the most vulnerable among us. In the aftermath of Jessica Lunsford's abduction and murder, her family stood at the precipice of a harrowing journey, a quest for justice that would demand every ounce of their strength and resolve. Mark Lunsford, Jessica's father, emerged as a powerful voice for his daughter, channeling his grief into a relentless pursuit of accountability for the man who had shattered their lives. Following John Cooey's arrest on March 17, 2005, the weight of the charges against him was staggering. He faced accusations of kidnapping, sexual battery, and first-degree murder, the culmination of a horrific crime that had taken the life of a 9-year-old girl. As the legal process began to unfold, the Lunsford family found themselves thrust into the public eye, their personal tragedy becoming a focal point of the media and the community. The initial court proceedings were a whirlwind of emotions. Cooey was formally charged, and the evidence against him painted a chilling portrait of the events that had transpired. The courtroom, typically a place of order and decorum, was charged with tension as the gravity of the situation settled over everyone present. The Lunsford family sought to find solace in the pursuit of justice, but the journey ahead would be fraught with challenges. As the trial date approached, the atmosphere grew more palpable, with both the prosecution and defense preparing for a battle that would unfold in the public eye. The prosecution, armed with a wealth of damning evidence, was determined to present a case that showcased Cooey's monstrous actions. They highlighted the DNA evidence found on the blood-stained mattress, the chilling confession that had been deemed inadmissible, and the witness statements that linked him to Jessica's abduction. The lead prosecutor painted a vivid picture of Jessica's last days, invoking the innocence of a child who had been so cruelly snatched from her home. Each detail served to remind the jury of the young life lost, of the laughter that had been silenced forever. The prosecution implored the jurors to see beyond the crime itself, to understand the devastating impact on Jessica's family and the community that mourned her loss. On the other side of the courtroom stood the defense, tasked with mounting a formidable challenge against the overwhelming evidence. They sought to humanize Cooey, arguing that his troubled past and mental health issues played a significant role in his actions. They presented testimonies from family members who spoke of his difficult upbringing and the emotional scars left by years of abuse. The defense attempted to paint a picture of a man who was, in their view, a product of his circumstances, a narrative that many found difficult to accept in light of the horror he had inflicted. As the trial unfolded, the courtroom became a battleground of conflicting narratives. The prosecution's case was bolstered by the forensic evidence and witness testimonies, while the defense leaned heavily on appeals to emotion, attempting to sway the jury with Cui's tragic backstory. The tension reached a crescendo as each side presented their closing arguments, leaving the jury to grapple with the weight of their decision. Finally, after hours of deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict that echoed throughout the courtroom, a unanimous decision of guilty on all counts. The air was thick with a mixture of relief and sorrow as Jessica's family embraced, knowing that while justice had been served, it could never bring their daughter back. The sentencing phase followed, where the gravity of Cui's actions was laid bare once more. The prosecution called for the death penalty, arguing that the heinous nature of the crime warranted the ultimate punishment. They emphasized the brutality of Jessica's murder, the violation of her innocence, and the lasting impact on her family and community. Mark Lunsford, driven by the pain of his loss, stood before the court and spoke passionately, urging the judge to impose the harshest possible sentence. In stark contrast, the defense argued against the death penalty, citing Cui's troubled history and mental health issues. They claimed that his life had been marked by despair and turmoil, suggesting that he was not entirely responsible for his actions. Yet, the weight of the evidence proved insurmountable. On August 24, 2007, John Cui was sentenced to death, alongside 3 consecutive life sentences. The verdict resonated like a thunderclap across the courtroom, a final declaration of accountability for the man who had wreaked havoc on the lives of so many. As Cui was led away, the Lunsford family found a measure of solace in knowing that justice had prevailed, even if it could never heal their wounds. Jessica's murder not only ignited a firestorm of media coverage but also propelled her father into the realm of advocacy. Mark Lunsford became a tireless champion for children's rights, fighting for legislative changes that would ensure stronger protections for vulnerable youth. His efforts culminated in the Jessica Lunsford Act, a landmark piece of legislation aimed at tightening restrictions on sex offenders and enhancing monitoring practices, a legacy born from the ashes of tragedy. As the courtroom doors closed on the legal proceedings, the Lunsford family's journey was far from over. They would continue to honor Jessica's memory, ensuring that her story served as a catalyst for change and a reminder of the fragile beauty of childhood. In the wake of Jessica Lunsford's tragic murder, the emotional scars ran deep within her family and the local community. Mark Lunsford, devastated by the loss of his only daughter, was thrust into a relentless pursuit of justice. The laughter that once filled their home was replaced by silence, a constant reminder of innocence lost. The psychological impact on Jessica's family was profound. Each day brought a new wave of heartache, and Mark became a powerful advocate for change, urging for greater protections for children. The community, once safe, now grappled with fear, as parents locked their doors a little tighter, their vigilance heightened. Jessica's case sparked a national conversation about child safety and the systemic failures that had allowed John Cui to evade scrutiny. The media coverage drew attention to the inadequacies in sex offender laws, igniting public demand for change. Mark Lunsford became an outspoken advocate, sharing Jessica's story to push for legislative reform. His efforts led to the creation of the Jessica Lunsford Act, which strengthened the monitoring of sex offenders and imposed harsher penalties for crimes against children. This legislation passed in Florida and inspired similar laws in 42 other states, marking a significant shift in child safety measures. The national dialogue also fostered greater awareness about child protection, prompting schools to implement enhanced safety protocols and encouraging parents to discuss safety with their children. While the legislative victories were significant, the scars of Jessica's murder remained. Mark and his family found strength in their advocacy, honoring her memory to prevent other families from experiencing similar pain. Jessica's story became a catalyst for change, transforming grief into purpose. Ultimately, Jessica Lunsford's legacy serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of community, resilience, and the unyielding fight for justice. It underscores the responsibility to protect the innocent and ensure their voices are never silenced again. As we reflect on the tragic case of Jessica Lunsford, it is essential to consider the broader implications of her story. Jessica's life and untimely death serve as a somber reminder of the vulnerabilities that children face and the urgent need for vigilance within our communities. The importance of community involvement cannot be overstated. Each of us has a role to play in safeguarding our children, whether through active participation in local safety initiatives, fostering open communication about personal safety, or simply being aware of our surroundings. Together, we can create an environment where children feel safe to explore and grow. Child safety measures must be prioritized, not only through legislation but also through education and awareness. Schools, parents, and community organizations must work together to implement effective safety protocols that empower children to recognize and avoid dangerous situations. Equipping children with knowledge about safety can be transformative, giving them the tools to protect themselves. Moreover, we must cultivate a culture of empathy and support for victims and their families. The aftermath of such tragedies can leave deep emotional scars, and it is crucial that we offer compassion and understanding to those affected. By fostering a supportive community, we can help families heal and advocate for change. Ultimately, Jessica's story is a call to action, a reminder that we must remain vigilant, involved, and compassionate. Let us honor her memory by committing to the safety and well-being of our children and supporting one another in the face of adversity. Together, we can work towards a future where every child is safe, cherished, and able to thrive. In conclusion, the tragic case of Jessica Lunsford highlights the critical importance of community vigilance, child safety measures, and the need for empathy towards victims and their families. We have explored the profound impact her story had on her family, the community, and the national conversation surrounding child protection. As we reflect on these key points, let us remember that preventing such tragedies requires a collective effort. It is our responsibility to create safe environments for our children, to be proactive in advocating for effective policies, and to support organizations dedicated to child safety. Now, more than ever, we must act with purpose and determination to ensure that no child suffers the same fate as Jessica. Join us in this vital mission. Become an advocate for child safety in your community and support relevant organizations working tirelessly to protect the most vulnerable among us. If you found value in this video, please like and share it to spread awareness. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more content that encourages meaningful change. Together, we can make a difference and help prevent future tragedies. Thank you for watching.